This is TWiT.
Hey, we have a return guest. Many years ago, this show used to be called This Week in Google.
Decades ago, some might say.
Decades ago. And we had Stephen Johnson on, who works at Google Labs and is editorial director at NotebookLM. We thought it'd be a good time to have him back now that we're talking about AI. Stephen, welcome back to Intelligent Machines.
It is lovely to be back with you three.
So nice to have you. We've been talking a lot, of course, about NotebookLM. I think a little bit of somewhat mocking over the podcast version of it. Although I was telling you before the show began, I used it this morning. I've been desperate to find something to teach me how stablecoin works because Congress just passed the Genius Act, and I don't really know what that's all about. So NotebookLM now has a really nice feature where the Discover button, where you press Discover and you can do a search. I searched for stablecoin. It came up with its proposal for 10 reliable resources, of which I approved all of them, although you can uncheck any you want. I actually did it 3 times. So I now have not quite 30, but I have quite a few sources. And I did the AI audio overview, which is great, but I can also query it. This is a really nice way to do AI. It's an easy to use version of retrieval augmented generation. Is that correct, RAG?
Yeah. That was kind of the bet from the very beginning of this project, which is now dates back almost exactly 3 years.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy. I started at Google almost exactly 3 years ago.
That's a decade in Google time.
I know, it's a long time. And you know, one of the first things we started working on, there was a project here called had a great code name, which was talk to a small corpus.
That sounds like a dead body. Not good. Not good.
But it was like, what if you could use AI? Now we would call it RAG. Now we would call it source grounding, as we call it at Notebook. But like, it was this then pretty revolutionary idea that you wouldn't just talk to a language model, but you would talk to a language model that was grounded in the documents that you gave it. And
so no hallucinations, is that right? It can't make stuff up?
I mean, it is getting better and better and better at not making stuff up.
Less likely to make stuff up.
Yeah, I actually very rarely find Notebook doing kind of classic hallucinations the way that we were familiar with particularly in the early days.
I find it telling me often, no, I can't answer that. You dork, you didn't give me.
Which is what you want, right?
Yes, I want that
You
exactly.
don't want it to appease you by making something up.
Yeah. So we like that was kind of the initial magic. We were like, if we could get AI to do that, then all sorts of things are going to become possible, right? It's going to be an amazing tool for writers and journalists, but it's going to be an amazing tool for like knowledge workers who work with lots of different documents. And potentially it could become a platform for people sharing information, which is something we're working on right now, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, it was that little kernel that when I saw that prototype, when I first got to Google, I was like, okay, there's an amazing product here if we build on this.
So you came from a journalistic background, not from a AI background.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this when I was on the show before. Like, I go way back with Jeff, both in my kind of entrepreneurial mode, but also as a writer and a journalist. And like Jeff, I had always been interested in the tools that I was using to write and to research, and had been an early adopter of like a whole host of kind of tools for thought, whether it was this thing called DevonThink that I got obsessed with, or
Love DevonThink. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like the world's biggest evangelist for DevonThink. Like I should have been on their payroll. So I had, and I'd written in a couple of my books, like Where Good Ideas Come From, I had written about the tools that I was using and how I saw software as a kind of second brain, as we would now say. And so I had written this very long piece for the New York Times Magazine in the spring of 2022, 6 months before ChatGPT, basically saying that these language models were coming, and this was going to be a sea change in how technology works. And they had a lot of problems, and they were complicated, lots of issues to work out, but they were real. They were the real deal, and we needed to take this tsunami very seriously. And it was the most controversial piece I've ever written in my life. Like all these people were like, oh, he fell for the AI hype. What a sad story, but while it was very unpleasant to like sift through that online, Josh Woodward and Clay Bavor, who's since left Google, had been reading my stuff over the years. And they knew about my obsession with tools for thought. And they read this article and they were like, hey, wonder if we could get Stephen to come in and help us develop a new tool, a native like AI first tool for writing and thinking. And that became NotebookLM.
It's interesting because that article was really about hallucinations, about untrustworthy AI, right? It says AI is mastering language. Should we trust what it says? This is back in the GPT-3 days.
Yeah.
Before the Cambrian explosion of AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can we trust what it says now?
Yeah, I do think that if so much of this is about curation, right? Like what is the knowledge base that you give to the model? And now, with other models, not just NotebookLM, but with Gemini and with some of those other models, I don't remember their names at other companies.
We don't know what they are either. Don't worry.
You can upload, source material and say, try and stick to that facts, to the facts in this source material. I think Notebook goes to a much more, aggressive approach in that the source material is always there, readable in the app. Like you can always read the original sources, and we have inline citations that take you right back to the original passages of the documents that you're working with. And so even if you're worried about hallucination, and because of the way that we do source grounding and because of the way that Gemini has been trained, it's unlikely to happen in Notebook. You can always just click on one of those citations and go back to the original passage and fact check it yourself. So we've just tried to a lot of it is like trying to orient the entire product so that one of the things that it's really amplifying and celebrating is the original knowledge written by humans. And to not have the AI replace that knowledge, but actually just be a great guide to that knowledge so that you're always like one step away from that original written text.
Is that how did you and they program NotebookLM? Is it basically a big master prompt that says this is how you operate, or did there have to be more hard coding involved?
I did a lot of very elaborate programming, I'd like to say. Our engineering team that's behind me here is just like, what is Stephen saying? He doesn't know anything.
A big hook pulls you off screen.
You vibe coded the whole thing, Stephen. I know.
I have started vibe coding demos, which is that's an amazing thing. That's a whole other world. But so there are kind of two elements. I mean, Notebook is running on Gemini, and in some sense, like one of the things that's interesting about the history of the product is we kind of built the UI for this whole experience, knowing that the model was going to catch up to our ambitions for it. So I think in the early days, we had an interesting surface, but it didn't work as well as we wanted to because the context window of the model was too small, because the earlier models weren't quite as good. And so we were kind of like, we're just going to build this app, and it's going to be kind of B- for a while. But we think if we build the software right, eventually the models will get good enough to do the kinds of things that we're dreaming of. And that's what basically started to happen with Gemini 1.5 in last May. Like my colleague Simon, who is now the head of product at Notebook, I remember seeing him in the hallways, and he was like, "Hey, Notebook finally works." Well, it kind of worked before, Simon, but
when did that happen?
It was like kind of May. We switched over to 1.5, and the results just got better. We had a slightly bigger context window. We also were able to internationalize at that point, which was huge. So suddenly you could upload a bunch of documents in Japanese and talk about them in English. I mean, it's just that whole side of it is kind of amazing. So that was basically like a year ago, and that was a point where we really started to feel like, oh, this is actually going to work. And then audio overviews came out in September, and that's when that feature just really went
Was that
more viral.
That was such a hoot, the audio overviews. Was that like a druggy dream of one of you, or was it always part of the plan, or how did that come out?
I have a great story about this, actually. So one of the things, we probably even talked about this when I was on the show before, was one idea that I had in the early days of Notebook is that I wrote a whole, Jeff, you'll appreciate this as an old publishing person, I wrote a whole style guide for Notebook in the early days, right? I was like, well, this is what the model should sound like, right? Just like I was like writing the style
Including the
guide.
Oxford comma, damn it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Is there an
Yeah.
Oxford comma? Is there not? But one of the key things was I was like, the model shouldn't have a subjective first-person voice. It shouldn't try to be your friend. It shouldn't say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or "I'd be delighted to help you." It's like,
Or
it's not your
fantastic
platform.
question. Yeah.
So I was like, it should just give you the information you need and not pretend to be your concierge or whatever it is. That some of the other things. So I kind of kept to that, maybe to a fault. Like I think maybe other users actually kind of like that, and so maybe it was the wrong call. But that was generally like my vision for what it should be. And so about, I don't know, in the spring, maybe like February of last year, there was another product that actually Simon, who I just mentioned, was kind of overseeing inside of Google Labs. And it was basically this like auto podcast maker. And you could give it a bunch of sources and it would spit out this podcast. And the first time I heard it, it was this like a kids science show podcast. And it was like teaching you about physics. And the hosts had like, not only were they speaking subjectively, but they had like special names. And so the podcast began with one of the hosts being like, "I'm Captain Kinetic, and this is my sidekick." Like, "We're here to teach you about physics." And I was just like, this is hilarious. But boy, is this not at all what NotebookLM is all about. Like, but it was very cool. Like, I mean, anybody's heard it. Like, it is uncanny. Like the conversational model that they had, that Google DeepMind had developed, the conversational audio model was like, it was magic. And at some point right before I/O, our big annual event, there was some question about like, they wanted to show this demo, but they didn't want to just show a like demo just sitting out there with like not attached to a real product. And I think Josh Woodward, it might have been Sundar, but one of them, like in the kind of like with a week to go before I/O, was like, what if audio overviews was part of Notebook? And we showed it as like a part of Notebook. And they kind of convened this like, last minute, like Sunday night meeting being like, "What do you think about this?" And my first thought was like, Captain Kinetic cannot come into my beautiful Notebook. And then I thought for a second and was like, "Oh, wait a second. Like, the reason we're building this thing is we think this is a tool for understanding things, right? This is a tool that helps you understand whatever material you're trying to understand. And some people like to understand things by reading the original text. Some people like to understand them by having text-based chat conversations. But some people, as you all know, like to listen to a podcast to understand things. And if we can just slightly dial the tone of the podcast back a little bit, this is perfect." And like within 5 minutes, I was like, "That's a brilliant idea. I'm going to get out of the way of you guys. Go build it." I think it's great. And
they built it in less than a week.
They built the demo in less than a week. Yeah, we got it running.
Wow.
It was crazy. And then it took us like 3 months to actually like put it in the product. And then it just took off.
Yeah. Can you change the voices sometime?
What we did do, we haven't changed the reason why we didn't change the voices for so long is this is really cool. It is as I said, it's a conversational audio model. So it's those two people were in conversation for, many, many, many hours, building up the kind of like.
Oh, so they're real people.
So it's trained off of their two real people's conversation recorded for hours?
Interacting with each other. It's not.
Wow.
It's not. You have a script with one robot voice and a script with another robot voice, and you just intersperse them. It's the way that those two people interacted.
So you put the prosody from their conversations on top of the generated.
Where's the feature story about? Can we interview them? Seriously?
Yeah, I don't know who they are.
That might creep me out a little bit, to be honest.
But here's.
Do you know their names? Just out of curiosity, I'd love to give them names.
We have internal names for the people.
Okay.
But we haven't revealed those. So, but here's the thing about it: we had other pairs of conversational models, but there was something about the way those people interacted that just really worked.
It's good.
And
they sound like friends. Yeah.
When you switch to the other voices, it sounds like a degradation in quality, even though I think it's actually that the actual human chemistry between those two people was better than the other models we had.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I
That's
had no
fascinating.
idea.
It's pretty crazy. So, but that's why it took us so long to internationalize.
Right.
The part of this, one of the things I love about this is that every language has different words and syntax for things, but also every language interrupts each other like differently and has different like conversational ticks. And so again, you can't just like say, okay, read this script in Japanese. You have to be like, no, interact the way two Japanese people do in conversation, which is totally different from the way that two Americans interact in conversation. So that took us a while. That was a big thing. We rolled out in like 80 languages.
Jeez. So you had to have 80 pairs of conversants.
Something like that. I mean, this is all like GDM, Google DeepMind did the underlying audio models, and we just like get to figure out how to have fun with them. But it's amazing technology.
It is pretty impressive when you listen to it and you say those voices are AI generated. It's pretty amazing. We're talking to Steven Johnson. He is with Google Labs and is the editorial director for NotebookLM. You may say, I know this guy because, of course, 10 years ago you did a PBS series called How We Got to Now. There was a book too, in which you talk about 6 technologies that shape modern society: cleanliness, time, light, cold, glass, and sound. If you were to do that today, you'd probably want to add AI to that?
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, AI is part of those stories in a way. I mean,
they're all a continuum, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do, for instance, you say you can't make chips without cleanliness. I mean, it does start with, washing your hands after, but it goes beyond that.
The clean episode ends with me in a like chip fab plant in Texas, wearing all the like stuff, and it's like the biggest threat to this environment in terms of cleanliness was me, like going into the manufacturing space, so they had to like get me as clean as possible because it's such a hyper clean place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it must be kind of cool after covering and talking about and writing about how technology changes the world to actually be so closely involved with something current that is happening and being invented in real time as we speak.
Yeah, it is like intellectually just incredibly interesting.
I bet.
I can't. It's very hard to have my brain think about anything else. And in a way, our issue right now is like there's just so many things we want to build. Like we really think we have built a platform that can be pushed in lots of different directions. And so we and the other thing we were constrained by the model in a sense like a year and a half ago, and then we were constrained by the fact that we had like 7 engineers when Audio Overviews launched, and we we're like, oh my gosh, we have millions of people using this product, and like we have this tiny team by Google standards, so we had to staff up a lot.
How many
we've done
engineers
that.
do you have now?
I significantly more than that. I don't know what our policies are talking about how big the team is, but it's very small still by
Google
workspace
standards,
Google standards, but very large by little notebook standards.
Let's talk a little bit about the roadmap. Of course, you recently added. So first of all, what's really cool about this? I've used RAG on local models. I used it on ChatGPT when they added custom GPTs. I've used it all along, and I really think that RAG is in many ways the most useful kind of AI to use, at least for certain kinds for research, for instance.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I like having the footnotes. I like having the sources visible. I like knowing that, in fact, in my instructions, when I do those kind of custom things, I say, do not come up with a fact that is not in your corpus and not in the body of information that I've given you. But so you've made this very easy for somebody who's not, really up on AI to generate something very accessible, very easy to use. And this new feature I really like. So this just came out a couple of weeks ago. This is that sources thing.
Oh, discover sources.
Discover sources.
Yeah. So Discover Sources, in a sense, is a sister product to Deep Research, which is part of Gemini, and we're kind of working closely with that team now. And it basically allows you to, instead of just manually uploading sources, you can open up a notebook and say, like, for instance, just yesterday, I'm working on a Substack piece that mentions, for reasons we might actually want to get into, the Steve Jobs original launch of the Next Cube in the late 80s, which came bundled with the complete works of William Shakespeare, along with the Oxford Dictionary quotations and the OED and things like that. And I wanted to write a little something about that for a Substack post that I'm sending out tomorrow. And so I was like, I know some of that history, but I was like, what is the actual deal with the launch of the Next computer? And like, what was the backstory about that stuff? And what I did was I opened up a notebook, I opened up Discover Sources, and I said, writing a piece about like the backstory about Jobs and the Next computer and the inclusion of Shakespeare in there, like find me the relevant stuff. So it finds like 10 articles. I accept them all, bring them in, and then I just like hit briefing doc, the automatic like one-click briefing doc.
So
and
cool.
in 10 seconds, it's just like, here's the info you need to know on this topic coming from these like reputable sources around the web. And I'm convinced for that kind of thing where you need kind of like 4 or 5 paragraphs of like the general, facts. It was the best way to get that information. And
how do you use it? You query it? You probably don't listen to the podcast version, the audio overview. You query it?
I just sometimes I'm like a text person, so I don't, usually I don't actually listen to that many podcasts. I find it's just fast. I read very fast. I skim very fast. So I find podcasts are kind of too slow for me. So I use the reports, which are really heavily used. You can create an FAQ, you can create a briefing doc. Sometimes I will ask a specific question in chat. But in this case, it gave me this great overview, and then it quoted, this is the thing I'd forgotten. When they released the Next computer, they had this whole software that they called the Digital Librarian. And there was this quote about how the Digital Librarian would work. And I clicked on the citation, and it took me to this page that Notebook had found that was the original brochure for the Next computer. And it had all this amazing language that I'm now bringing into the Substack post. And so I got to that exactly the insight that I was looking for. And I don't know, like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And as you were saying before, like it leaves behind this amazing body of knowledge that I can then go and query and build on later if I have more questions about it. It's not just like a one-off question. You get the answer and you're done.
So the NotebookLM is an app you can download on your iPhone. You can also, I think you can use it on the web. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, the web is the most feature-rich way to use it is as a web app.
NotebookLM.Google if you want to go there. Yeah.
.com.
Well, there's a
marketing site at .Google. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want the ad, you go there first, and then you'll get to notebooklm.com. And then you can. By the way, it saves all your notebooks, which is nice. So you can do this research and go back to it.
And you can now share them, which is the other big thing they announced a few weeks ago.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I think for students, this is amazing. I mean,
we're seeing a lot of adoption among students.
I know you're very aware of this because you made a middle school version of your book.
Yeah, I've done it for a couple of the books actually.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
So that's, you're kind of aware of this, possibility. But
Leo, let me say something that's important here actually, which is what one does when one adapts a book for the middle grade audience is basically saying, here's this core text, and I need to translate this into a language that a 7th grader would understand. And so I need to think about like how that information can do. And that's one of the things that's so powerful about Notebook, because Notebook can do that too, right? You can go in a Notebook with like really advanced scientific articles, and you can say, hey, I'm a first-year college student. Can you explain this material at my level so that I can understand it better? And or I like to listen to things, so I'd like an audio overview for this, or I would like this summarized as an FAQ or whatever it is. And so the fact that you create this like adaptive surface for exploring knowledge that basically will flex to whatever your particular learning style is or your comprehension level is. And that's like in the education space what makes it so magical.
So Stephen, for the next book, as I've mentioned on the show before about mass media, I've decided to go all in and try to keep everything I can in PDFs so I can put it in NotebookLM. I started using a tablet so I can read books that way, which it's not the way I like to do it. And because I want to organize things, I can't find stuff. I've got thousands of pages of paper and scores of books for the last book. What advice do you have for me in a project like this about how best to use NotebookLM? I'm not going to use it to write anything. But what are the values that you get out of it as a writer?
Yeah, I'm kind of sketching out this couple of ideas for books, and so I'm kind of at a similar stage where I'm using the product in that way. So one thing I did, which is a little bit before the stage that you're at now, Jeff, is I have a notebook called The Next Book. And that's just like the grab bag notebook where whenever I have a random idea where I'm like, maybe I'll write a book about blueberries, like, oh, okay, I do a little source discovery on blueberries and it comes in and I like, decide that's a terrible idea, whatever.
Raspberries.
But so that notebook is just like a scratch pad of like early hunches that I have explored a little bit. And, there's a whole range of random stuff in that notebook, but I can quickly go back and see what I thought. And, but then once you kind of know what the project is, I think you're doing the right thing, which is you really want to read with an e-reader, highlight the passages as you're reading them.
Yep.
And then use Readwise.
I do that.
It
links up to my Kindle and my Kobo.
Yeah, and then you can bring those passages. Readwise has an export to docs function that is basically they built so that it was optimized for NotebookLM.
Nice.
And so you can bring those docs with all your quotes into Notebook. So then you have like a single notebook with like all your reading history. Obviously, you can do things like, what was that quote about? Or like, what year was that? Factual questions, it's fantastic at. But the thing that I find really, really interesting is kind of starting to brainstorm structure with it. So I have this idea for the book that I'm thinking about writing about the gold rush. And I had an idea for like a kind of a crazy chapter structure for it. And so in that notebook, I kind of sat down. It had all my like reading notes and other public domain material that I put just in their entirety into the book. And I said, okay, I'm thinking about like structuring the book this way, with this chapter structure. Like, fill it out for me. If I did that chapter structure, what would be the main, material in each chapter? And it just was like, bloop, here you go. Here's one take at it. And it's just like as a way of like exploring potential combinations like that,
Right.
that you can put like, you can kind of write in shorthand and then be like, okay, fill that out. And what would that look like? You're like, that's interesting. So that kind of stuff is super interesting. What I haven't yet, like the interesting new threshold that maybe we don't want to get to, or maybe we do, but that it's not quite there yet, is like, I don't trust Notebook's judgment yet. So it's like the sycophancy problem that I don't trust it. Like, I'd love to be able to kind of like create a kind of personalized AI based on my whole history that knows me and knows the things that I'm interested in, my sensibility, where I could float an idea and have Notebook and be like, hey, what do you think of this notebook? And have Notebook actually be like, well, I like this part of it. I think this could use a little bit more work. I think, maybe, but it tends to be like, I love that idea, Stephen. You're fantastic. This is great. You're brilliant.
How do you think the industry solves for that? Because that seems to be a very common problem among models.
Yeah, it's interesting because like so much of their fundamental instruction in training is to be helpful, and helpfulness seems to have, it seems to have this like, I just want to do whatever you want. I'm happy to do, but being helpful is sometimes like tough love helpful, like telling you that you're not writing at the level that you should be writing, or this idea isn't very good. And I don't know. Part of me is like, I kind of like in a way that it's not doing that yet. Like what I want is, I want it to help organize all of the information and present it to me in exactly the way that I need to see it at any given time. And I kind of, I'm happy doing the judgment part of it. But I'm intrigued by the idea. The other thing that's interesting, so I should mention like these featured notebooks that we have that just came out. So kind of the beginning of something I think that I'm really interested in. So we work with a bunch of partners to create these 8 notebooks of like curated content on a range of different topics. And a couple of them are in the advice mode, so which we think is really a powerful new kind of thing for NotebookLM. So there's a notebook we did in collaboration with The Atlantic based on Arthur Brooks's How to Build a Life column, like kind of the science of happiness stuff that he's written about. There's a great one about like parenting in the digital age based on this woman, Jackie Nessie's work, or Nisi's work on, she has a Substack called Technosapiens. There's one from Eric Topol on health span and stuff like that. So the idea with these notebooks is, if you are trying to get advice on like how to have a better to extend your health span, or how to like deal with parenting, you want the aggregate of all the average of all human knowledge on that topic to be the answer. You want information from a specialist or an expert who you trust to give you that answer. And so what these notebooks allow you to do is say like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to ask, the Arthur Brooks notebook for advice about this like midlife career change that I'm thinking about doing. And the model doesn't pretend to be Arthur Brooks, but it gives you a grounded answer based in the work of and the research that like Arthur Brooks has collated over the course of these columns. And so what you can start to see there is maybe this idea like in a future notebook where you'd be working on your book and you would assemble like a little like team of rivals, like a little brain trust of kind of experts that could help you think through the problem. And you could be like, I'd really like to have like these 3 or 4 people that I could kind of bounce ideas off of. And so I've kind of collected their knowledge into this notebook to help me work on this project. Like that kind of approach, I think is super interesting.
We're talking to Steven Johnson. He is the editorial director of NotebookLM at Google, where he's at Google Labs. Steven has a presentation for us. So let's take a little break. I know you have a few minutes left. Let's take a little break. When we come back, Steven Johnson and some best practices. I don't know. What's the demo of,
fun
Steven?
demo.
So some of these new featured notebooks, it's going to be really cool.
Oh, okay. Okay. Stay tuned. More to come. You're watching Intelligent Machines. We're back with Steven Johnson, and we were talking about NotebookLM. He's editorial director there. You mentioned that there are these featured notebooks. I actually don't know where to go to see the special featured notebooks.
Yeah, we've just started rolling them out. Like 50% of our users are seeing them right now. There are direct links. Every individual one has a direct link. So there's a blog post at Google that announces them all. But I'll show you if you.
Some were shared with me in my shared with me part, right?
Yeah, it could be. So this is you all seeing my screen?
Yeah, I still just see the invention of the light bulb, which I got back in December 2023 when I first signed up.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are gonna be available to everyone soon.
Look at these. Nice.
They have this new kind of cover art, which is really nice. So like we have, for instance, like a travel guide to Yellowstone. That's pretty amazing. You can just go in and say like, all right, I'm going for 3 days. I need accessibility. Like I'm interested in like geysers. Plan an itinerary for me. It'll do all that stuff. The one I want to show you actually that is really pretty amazing, and this is why I was researching.
44 sources in this, the William Shakespeare. Now, how many? What's the limit? How many sources can you?
You can have. I mean, for the free tier, you can have up to 50. Okay. I think it's 300 if you pay for this.
In this case, the 44 are all of Shakespeare's plays.
All the plays plus the sonnets, all in one notebook.
The complete works.
you can go in and you can read the original plays if you want. We formatted all the sources in these so that they're really nice to read. So it's a fine like reading surface. But you can also ask for explanations. You can say, explain this plot to me. The thing that I think is just so mind blowing is the feature we introduced earlier this spring, which is actually a huge hit. Kind of surprised all of us, which is mind maps. So this is the model has gone through the entire body of work of William Shakespeare and figured out these are the key themes that are there, like love and relationships, morality and virtue, power and ambition. You can then kind of zoom in on these different themes. Now, when I first saw this feature, I was like, yeah, it's cool, but like there's a limit to what mind maps can do because like ultimately you're just like seeing a picture of the concepts and like it's cool to see that those are the themes, but really does that help you understand it? But what's different about this, and I think different from any other mind map software ever, as far as I know, is that all of these little nodes are just queries. So I click on social status, and it generates a question like, what do these sources say about social status in the larger context of power and ambition, which is the kind of parent category? And so it's going to go through the complete works of Shakespeare and pull out all the different, kind of like moments and all the different plays that talk about social status. It's going to basically kind of write this interesting, like, footnoted essay, and
that's
as a
not
way
it's
of
doing it fresh every time.
Oh yeah. I mean, the mind map is, you generate it once based on your sources, and then that's cached. But each of these, you can tell it's not cached because it's taking a while to write along essay here. But that as a way of just kind of navigating large bodies of information. So we think that, like, just uploading a bunch of like public domain information, think about this in terms of like, the big beautiful bill, like put that into a notebook and generate a mind map of it, and then be able to explore the kind of concepts or categories that you're interested in and get these kind of detailed answers that at some point will actually appear on the screen here. It's really doing a lot of thinking. But I actually have generated a couple of these in the
I do want your two voices to do this to the Romeo and Juliet scene.
So Romeo apparently is from a different family than Juliet. Really? What does that mean? Well, they don't like each other. It'd be fun. By the way, I want to volunteer every recording of this show with Paris, Jeff, and I that you can use for threesome. If you ever want to do three voices, you're more than welcome to use our prosody.
Leo, don't be throwing that away for free. You should license it.
I know. Hell no. Go ahead and use it.
For the good of the world.
For the good of the world. I think NotebookLM is one of the most exciting things I've seen, frankly, with AI. And I could see students using this. I mean, just to be able to query Shakespeare's plays, see what the themes are, say, hey, what did Bottom do in the forest in the Midsummer Night? And, just amazing.
Show off.
Well, I was in that play when I was in 6th grade, so I happen
I
to know
was in that play too.
Were you? I was
I
Orlando Dubois. Who were you?
I don't know. I was Lysander, I think.
Oh, nice. Oh no, that was As You Like It.
Well,
you were in Midsummer's Night Dream. I was in As You Like It. Yeah. So look at this. So here's the summary you got from that query. Yeah. So I'm downloading right now the one on how to age gracefully. I need that desperately.
Yeah.
This is the blog post. It's in the keyword blog. Try featured notebooks on NotebookLM. That way you can actually get to all of these if you haven't been offered them yet.
And I was saying to Stephen, I really want to see journalists put their raw material in here so that the public can collaborate on the reporting and find things in here.
Well, let's ask for Paris's benefit. There is privacy involved. So if I did this locally, I did this myself, it's not uploading my notes to Gemini, or is it? I mean, what is the privacy status of this?
It's obviously happening in the cloud, right? Your documents are
I mean, obviously it has to. Yeah.
But what we're not doing is training on the data. So we're just putting it into the context, and then the second your session ends, that information goes away. If that policy ever changed, we would obviously have a toggle that says don't train on my data. But right now there's kind of a firewall there. So you can, because we want people to be able to put in, like, I want Jeff to be able to put in the quotes from the books that he's bought and read on his device that he has the right to think with. I want that to be able to be used inside of NotebookLM without worrying about that copy.
But if I share that notebook, then does Random House get mad at me, or
if you share the notebook? I mean, you're still you're sharing. You could do the same thing with the Google Doc, like you're sharing if you're sharing quotes. So I think that if you built a large business by sharing quotes from books, maybe they would have done
bless.
Trading in illicit books.
Yeah, I guess you could do that anyway, couldn't you? Yeah. 140,000 public notebooks in the first month of the publicly shared notebooks.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of people building these. It's so really exciting.
I know, Stephen, you have to run. I want to just thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And thanks especially for NotebookLM. This is one of the most useful tools out there. I really am loving it.
Really appreciate it. Always love talking to you all, and always appreciate all the support you've given us.
Google results just came out. Last quarter, I put them into NotebookLM so I could query it. I'm going to do the same thing this time. That's a
Actually,
great
that's what,
use.
one of the featured notebooks is all the Q1 earnings reports for the top 50 companies around the world, and that's just an incredible. Like that's actually the second most popular of the featured notebooks. It's just a great resource. So we got
What's
to do
the
that
most
for Q2
popular?
now. The one we did with The Economist actually is the one that has had the most visits, which is cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought the parenting advice. I think the Shakespeare is incredible.
It's doing well too. Yeah, it's fun to just see to actually have a little leaderboard for the first time. We're really tracking all this stuff. We just don't know what's going to work and what's not.
Well, I am a paid subscriber to Gemini, and I couldn't be happier to be able to use NotebookLM. But everybody can use it for free. NotebookLM.com or .google, depending on
Thank you, my friend. Good
where
to see
you
you.
want to go. Thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're watching Intelligent Machines. Hey, it's Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little clip from our programming at TWiT.tv. For more, visit our website, TWiT.tv, or subscribe in your favorite podcast client. There's also a link somewhere down there.